Remember the movie Robocop from the 80s? It's about a police officer who is critically injured in a violent criminal attack. He undergoes a severe surgery to make him into a law-enforcing superhuman cyborg. A cyborg is basically a human with robotic parts, such as, in this case, mechanical hands, arms, limbs, and even organs. And all of these implants that make Robocop superior, because he can run faster, think faster, jump higher, all of these implants are called prosthetics. And a prosthetic is basically any artificial limb or body part that is implanted into the human body. We've been using prosthetics for hundreds of years now. If you lost your leg a couple hundred years ago, you would have a wooden stump placed on. If you lost your hand, you would have a hook placed on. But until recently, prosthetics that enhance human performance have only been in works of fiction, such as Star Wars and Robocop. I say until recently because researchers at the University of Southern California have developed a device called the biotech. This mechanical finger has sensors placed under an incompressible liquid surrounded by a soft, flexible metal. A really interesting part about this mechanical finger is that it can literally feel in the same way that a human finger can, up to 117 different textures with 95% accuracy. This is better than a human finger can detect textures. The greatest part about this technology is that they have developed an interface between the human nervous system and this mechanical finger. Hypothetically, I could have my finger removed and have this mechanical finger placed on as a replacement, and it would be able to send sensory information to my brain the same way that my human finger could, but potentially better. One benefit of incorporating this technology into the human body is the use of deep brain stimulations. This is when a device is placed into the user's cranium and sends targeted electric signals to a specific part of the brain. There was an experiment carried out with mice, and all of these mice had the eating disorder of binge eating. This is where you eat an uncontrollable amount of food and don't stop. This is because all of the mice had a faulty nucleus accumbens. The nucleus accumbens is basically the reward system of the brain. It's what makes you feel good after eating something or accomplishing something. It's the part of the brain that is targeted by cocaine and meth and other harmful drugs. So the nucleus accumbens was not functional in any of the mice in the experiment. So when they implanted a device into their head and sent electric signals to the faulty part of the brain, it activated and it started working properly. All of the mice started eating a normal amount and healthy amount of food. The most important part of this experiment is that when the device was turned off, all of the eating habits returned as if nothing had happened. See, this is potentially a solution for one of the world's fastest growing health problems, which is obesity. Granted, it only solves it on a biological level because it doesn't really affect the person's environment. It doesn't have any effect on their eating habits, which could lead into obesity. It wouldn't really affect their diet or their exercise. But it's still a very, very effective potential solution. But it's also kind of scary, because whatever company has placed this device into your head is literally controlling your neural activity. It's controlling what's going on inside your head, your thoughts basically. An infringement of rights on a degree that we have never before seen. A more real-life example of this technology in use is the Austrian man Bertolt Meyer. Bertolt was born without a left hand, and he has had a prosthetic one placed on as a replacement. A really cool aspect about this arm is that it is myoelectric. This means that it interacts with his nervous system. It literally reads the messages that would be sent to his hand to control it if it were there. The hand is capable of simple hand motions, such as opening and closing all 5 fingers, moving only his index finger and his thumb, and moving only his middle finger and his index finger, which is great for controlling computer mice. Now, he is now able to open bottles and tie his shoes, another everyday task that would be really, really difficult if you only had one hand. But it's just interesting how this one prosthetic can improve this man's life significantly. Granted, none of these motions that he can do are exactly groundbreaking. It's still really cool how much this can improve someone. So a couple months ago, for my extended essay, I interviewed some gentlemen down at LimTech. LimTech is a German orthotics and prosthesis company in Healthcare City. They produce limbs similar to this one. This is not a myoelectric device. They do not produce devices that interact with the human nervous system. They do allow patients to recover from their amputations and live normal lives. One of the gentlemen I interviewed was Robert Dalmayer, a certified prosthetist, orthotist, and master craftsman at LimTech. And he told me a very interesting story about a man in France who had lost both of his arms below the elbow in a tragic car accident. Surgery was undertaken to take the arms of a deceased man and place them onto the man who had originally lost his arms. The surgery was a success, and the man was able to regain roughly 70% control of his new human limbs. Robert told me that even though this man regained some of the control in his arms, he opted to have the external limbs removed because he was so uncomfortable with having an external limb being controlled by his nervous system. This shows the potential degree of trauma that is associated with this field. If this man rejected functioning human limbs, can you imagine how everybody else would react to, say, a mechanical limb, even if it did act and perform better than a human limb? So what I asked Robert for his final opinion on human augmentation, which is removing a perfectly healthy limb and putting on a better mechanical one. He told me something very interesting. He said, I have problems with that. My ethics is to keep us individual and to let Mother Nature or God or whatever do the work for you. Improvements in the body should be done through genetics. I found this really interesting because the man, or one of the men who was most involved in the field of prosthetics in Dubai, says that we should not be using this technology to artificially enhance ourselves. Granted, Robert does not produce the kind of limbs that would be used to enhance the human race, so it would almost, in a sense, be endangering his field of work. I still find it very interesting. But let's not forget what this technology can do for us. Some of these enhancements could include superior memory, IQ, extrasensory capabilities like echolocation, the same thing bats use to navigate pitch-black caves. We'd be able to have optical enhancements, such as infrared vision, night vision. I mean, the possibilities in this field literally are endless. But here's my precaution. Sorry. But here's what I want you to take away from this speech. Sorry. So I've played so many video games and read so many books and watched so many movies on this topic. Choosing whether or not I support this controversial technology is really difficult. Yes, there are a certain amount of threats involved in this field, and the ethics behind it are more than questionable. But I mean, come on. It's just so cool. So here's what I want you to take away from this speech. I estimate that this technology will be available on a consumer level within the next 15 years. I imagine we'd be able to walk into a store with an entirely new arm, a more capable arm, faster, stronger, and more sensitive. I imagine that we'd be able to walk out of a store with a chip in our head, a chip that could act as a phone that could display movies and messages directly into your eyes, a phone that could play music directly into your ears. I won't say that this isn't kind of awesome because our work capabilities would be literally maximized. But here's my precaution. No movie, book, story, thought I've ever heard, read, seen, or played ever ended with everybody living happily ever after forever. There was always the tyrant. There was always the conspiracy. There was always the one who wanted to enslave the human race by putting chips into our heads. Let's not forget that this technology could be permanently replacing what makes us human. Philosophers can't even determine what makes us human, but this technology sure won't assist in keeping us individual. This field has a literally infinite number of possibilities and outcomes, for better or for worse. Thank you very much.